Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Macy Schmidt, the orchestrator for the opening number of the 2023 Tony Awards. And I have to imagine, Macy, that this was probably the trickiest Tony ceremony to produce because of the Writers Guild strike. There was no written lines of dialogue allowed. So enter Ariana DeBose leading this gorgeous dance piece, you as the orchestrator. And I understand that she called you and asked you to be a part of this. Is that correct? How did that call go?
That is correct. I mean, Ari is such a creative visionary. It was a lovely call. I was sitting right here and we chatted through kind of what she wanted it to be. And um, we acknowledged the various things that made the 2023 Tony Awards very different. One of which was that it was at the United Palace Theater, uptown in Harlem, rather than at our often Radio City Music Hall. So we wanted to acknowledge the cultural element of that and the neighborhood, the fact that with the writer's strike, we couldn't have singing or words, and how, Ari wanted to kind of fill that void with dance, which she did so beautifully. So we just kind of had a chat about what she wanted it to be and look like. And I walked away with kind of three things, three pillars. One was kind of staying true to New York, but not like slick Broadway Midtown New York, like uptown Harlem New York, and kind of finding a way to honor that, finding a way to incorporate uh, Latin flair and in the music and in honoring that, and it being very dance focused. And so I kind of had those three pillars to go off of. And beyond that, in terms of like which songs or which things were picked together, I kind of that afternoon I started pulling a roadmap of songs to piece together. And the very fun, very tricky part about this is that as an arranger, in that instance, my job is to try to find songs that, even though you can't hear the words, you're not hearing singing, are fit perfectly, but are recognizable enough and known enough that it tells a story from kind of like the scroll of lyrics in your head because you know them all. And that the construction of the puzzle was definitely the most fun part for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of great New York numbers in there. There's certainly a lot to choose from. Were there any that kind of like got left on the cutting room floor? Like how difficult was it to narrow it down?
You know, there were a lot that got left on the cutting room floor, um, just because I made a very big list and then pulled from what made most sense next. Um, uh, there were a few that got left on the cutting room floor from usage issues, but
Right.
I, I knew I knew absolutely immediately I wanted to open with the In the Heights clave that I was really excited about. And Ari had asked me, what the one song that I remember she brought up was um, "You Must Take the A Train," which it frames the opening number, the closing number, kind of all throughout the Tonys, all the bumper music. This "You Must Take the A Train" was kind of framed, so I kind of had to figure out first what is the version of that that makes sense. And I had so many creative things to go off of from Ari. Like I knew that she wanted to start in a dressing room, have maybe some soloists be getting into it, eventually come down to the lobby, eventually get into the room. So kind of piece by piece, I knew, okay, I want the In the Heights clave. The first show I ever music directed was In the Heights. It's very special to me, being actually literally in the Heights. And then we have a solo saxophone player that's the Sinfonietta provided soloist musicians kind of featured on these different instruments, playing the melody to You Must Take the A Train. And then everything kind of builds in, and we change sections as she goes through the United Palace Theater. So there was a lot left on the cutting room floor, but I kind of more made a giant Spotify playlist. And then section by section, looking at the map of like, okay, well, what's the next room? What's the next vibe we're going for? What fits here? And what two songs can you put on top of each other? I mean, there are sections where the horns of Uptown Funk are over the bass groove of Empire State of Mind, and like all kinds of things like that. So Ben Rauhala, who is Ariana's longtime music director and amazing music director and arranger in his own right, and a dear friend of mine, worked on the arrangement with me. And something that we did that was really fun was pull and isolate the elements of those songs. So rather than have Uptown Funk, Empire State of Mind, we isolated the beat, the melody, the harmony of like each of those songs so that we could pick and choose the different elements and splash them together. So being on Zoom with him, looking at this chaotic list of like rhythms from these songs and melodies from these songs and harmonies from these songs, and kind of making our own Mad Lib from it was definitely the most fun thing to do.
When you're creating an arrangement, because you were talking about the instruments, do you kind of hear what instruments you're going to use immediately, or does that take a lot of trial and error for you?
That's a wonderful question. Sometimes, most of the time, I do, because for me, orchestration is really kind of my main thing, and arranging for me is arranging is they're interlocked. Most of the time, you're doing both at the same time. But for me, I definitely heard this arrangement in the orchestration. Like, for example, the opening is that In the Heights clave that opens it, and then a tenor saxophone playing You Must Take the A Train. What good is it for me to put that all in a piano sketch of that to just put it back into the instrument? But there were definitely sections, like when we got into the like middle sections of dance. Oh, a great section is like all of the, in the end, I used There's No Business Like Show Business, and kind of rapidly, we went rapid fire through a bunch of different Latin dance styles so that she could just kind of show off in Latin dance styles. That I just played on piano and like did a piano sketch of, and then when it came down to sit down and orchestrate it, properly did it. So I would say when the thing happening is supposed to go to a specific instrument most of the time, but also it depends most of the time.
Well, I loved how it was staged and choreographed through all of the lobby spaces of the United Palace, and you get a featured moment there on the piano as the camera's swirling around you. What was that like, not just to be on TV in the opening number, but also see your creation literally come to life around you?
It was really magical. It was really magical because I had a creative bucket list, and in 2023, last summer, I am unbelievably lucky to have checked off what was at that point in my life. I mean, there's always more, you can always make more. My creative bucket list. And what's funny is what was on my creative bucket list was not get to create a Tony's opening number, get to arrange one, because in a normal year where there's not a writer's strike, that would never happen. And I don't compose, I'm not a writer. Someone in my position would never be asked to create an opening number to the Tonys. What was on my bucket list was orchestrate a Tony's opening number for whoever writes it. And this was so much more than that. So, for my craft is arranging and orchestrating, for there to be a circumstance for the first time in Tony Awards history, the opening number to be built in that way, it's like you have a dream, but then the dream comes true in an even more magical way than you had been chasing it. So it was really special. That moment on the piano, it just so happened, which the beautiful choreography had already been done before I came in. A dear friend of mine who was in the ensemble was the one who pops out from the piano behind, and we shared this little moment when we would rehearse it. And also the section when the dancers come in after the piano moment was my favorite part of it, which is the New York State of Mind is on piano, and then NYC from Annie kind of comes into it, but underneath all of it is the Empire State of Mind rhythm beat underneath the New York State of Mind piano, with NYC from Annie kind of like the sweeping string melody on top, and these dancers are twirling and flying. And and right before that, when Ariana literally leaps down the stairs, yeah, just the choreography of that number was just absolutely iconic. So it was special that it was like an augmented version of what I thought my dream of being part of Tony Awards history would be.
Yeah, you sort of got to fuse two worlds in a way too, because you're the co-founder of Broadway Sinfonietta, which is an all-women and majority women of color orchestra. And some of those folks pop up as soloists during the opening number. What was it like to combine those worlds?
Really special. It means a lot to me. It has been something that's been really special to, in my work as an orchestrator, my career as an orchestrator, and running the orchestra. Sometimes I will be brought into projects in one lane and find a way to be giving women musicians a platform, be giving them jobs, be kind of putting them front and center. I loved the way that this number honored those musicians who are all soloists with careers in their own right on their own instruments. And yeah, it really, the Sinfonietta is the love of my life. Creating jobs for women musicians who are extremely skilled and deserving of them, and really giving them a spotlight and a dignity and a celebration for the work that they do. It's the love of my life.
Yeah. You also, it's appropriate for you to be at the Tonys because you made Tony history, actually. You provided orchestrations for Kimberly Akimbo, which was the Best Musical winner. And in doing so, you became the first and only, I believe, orchestrator, woman of color in that position. So what comes up for you when you hear that statistic to be the only one?
Hmm. Like half pride, half disappointment.
Hmm.
You know, I actually knew during the pandemic, I had thought, I was like, I wonder if there have, like, how many women orchestrators there have been at all. And in the pandemic, when we all had plenty of downtime on our hands, I went through, Playbill archives, looking at all of the orchestrators, additional orchestrators, co-orchestrators, supervising orchestrators for like 25 years back in Broadway. I ended up going further back eventually. And including additional orchestrators across shows, I believe I found women in general, 7 women orchestrators out of like many hundreds, closer to 1,000 of positions held.
Wow.
Less than 1%. And it's a tricky position. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Orchestration on a Broadway music team is not, it's not a role that has a built-in stepping stone. It's not a role that has a built-in assistant, the way that maybe you're an assistant music director and an associate music director and then a music director, and so it's very, very mentorship driven. And it's a hard craft to get into, and I fell in love with it. At the age that I fell in love with it, I did not exactly have a role model for that. It has been unbelievably special to, in some small ways, get notes from like music students and young women saying that noticing that means something to them, that someone having broken those barriers and done that means something to them. I don't take that lightly. So I guess when I hear that statistic, I think how absolutely outrageous that is a thing. It's like a bittersweetness that comes with being a first of anything, but also, a pride and hopefulness.
Yeah, hopefully many more to come. Which makes it feel like your work with Broadway Sinfonietta is really kind of having a great impact, because orchestras too are, I think, a very male-dominated space and a male-dominated industry. What would you, if you're looking at the work there, what would you say is your proudest moment then with Broadway Sinfonietta?
Oh, wow. My proudest moment with Broadway Sinfonietta. There have been a lot. Every minute that I spend with those women is absolutely my proudest moment. But I think my proudest moment is coming up in July, actually, which is that the Broadway Sinfonietta is headlining the Hollywood Bowl for the world premiere of Barbie the Movie in Concert, which is a program that the Sinfonietta I developed and produced as well. And the to play those kinds of stages and spaces that have been, people ask me often why the majority women of color element to it. Why not just call it all women? And my answer is that it's already very rare in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, especially in this line of music work, for women to be the majority in a room. Like if I'm in a recording session or I'm on a music team or whatnot, like it's the 1 or 2 women who have made it to that level in that room. It's even rarer, infinitely rarer, for women of color to be the majority in any of those professional spaces. And so, the like onion layer number 1 is like giving women a place to be the majority, and onion layer number 2 is like to be a woman of color in an all woman space and not be like the one, but rather like it be taking up a majority of space, not exclusively or in like a tokenized way to that extent, but carving out that space on platforms and stages, like working with Mattel and Barbie and the Hollywood Bowl, like at that caliber of work. That is the thing that I am the most proud of. I started this orchestra in my bedroom 4 years ago during the pandemic with a music video. And so to be conducting and headlining the Hollywood Bowl for a program that we got to develop, that I got to orchestrate, it's kind of a pinnacle dream for me.
Yes. Well, congratulations. We can't wait to see that. And congratulations again on a phenomenal job with the opening of the Tony Awards. So thank you, Macy, so much for sitting down and talking to me.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me.